Well, it was an interesting session. In the interest of time, I just once again want to repeat that keep tweeting, Instagram, whatever pictures you like, you want to put something, do that with hashtag 18markon. Moving on to our next session, which is marketing behind the paywall. For that, we have our moderator, Mr. Chris Higgins, Senior Vice President, Marketing, Netcore. We have our panelists as Mr. Dhruv Chopra, co-founder and CMO, Chalo, Ms. Harshita Singh, Business Head, Times Prime, and Mr. Ritesh Singh, co-founder and MD, Arm Worldwide. Welcome. I have to keep, awaking everyone. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much. Is that on? Yes. All right. So, when we were asked to come and do this session, I think it was a session we were all very excited about. I was very excited coming from Netcore because this is a topic that we discuss a lot with different companies, looking at things around retention and growth. So I'm just going to set the context and then we'll kind of jump into some questions. Basically, why are we here? Why are we having this topic? We're having this topic because at the moment we're seeing a huge change in the business ecosystem, kind of in the economy. Not so long ago, companies were chasing growth, aggressive growth. Money was easy to come by, people were getting funding. And when money is easy to come by, people look at growth. I mean, you want to have your market share growing, you want to have multiple revenue engines coming together. What's changed is that money has become much more difficult to get your hands on. Interest rates have gone up, debt costs more. Funding to Indian startups is down 70 to 80% year on year. And in that environment, everyone has to look at how do I make my money last? How do I ensure that I can make it through until the future when money becomes available more easily again? And so there's a big shift in the way that companies are looking at their business planning, which is away from kind of growth at any cost to profitability. And so we see a lot of words like efficiency, unit economics coming in, where people are really looking at how do I make sure, fine, I'm growing, but I'm growing in a profitable way. And so this creates a shift from just saying grow and we'll figure out how to make money later, to saying maybe I don't need to acquire a customer who's not going to be profitable for me. And it creates a shift for the marketing team to looking much more at engagement, retention, beyond just the growth at the start. So we've got a fantastic panel, and I think what's really interesting is that everyone's going to really look at this from a different perspective. So maybe when I'm asking questions, if you can just start by kind of giving your business perspective on how this comes together. I think my first question would be for Harshita, because you're coming from a subscription business. How do you look at this idea of, looking ahead towards renewals and saying, what are the metrics I want to be looking at? How am I going to plan ahead for that retention cycle?
So, we're a subscription-first business. So, renewal is actually a lagging indicator. There's really no way to know till the end, till the renewal is due, whether a user is going to renew or not. And this is something we had to learn with data. So I think what we realized was that the leading indicators to renewal massively was engagement. And of course, there are a couple of others. There's NPS and customer satisfaction, but largely engagement and, tracking those metrics that define engagement, whether it's app open or transacting on the platform or maybe activating benefits. Those were the cues that we took to make a churn prediction model, essentially. And more on a positive side, a renewal prediction model. What is the likelihood of somebody to renew? And then, of course, once we had some data sets over the years, we knew what the cohort that's most likely to renew, what behavior are they going to showcase. And that became the benchmark for us to kind of nudge everybody else to showcase the same behavior. Can I get you to use more offerings on my platform? If your app open rate is maybe 3 times a week, can I get you to 5? And if more and more people were emulating that behavior, the likelihood of renewal was going to be high. So that's really it's a learning curve. It's different for every business, but that's how we looked at it.
Okay, so it means kind of at a day-to-day level, rather than just saying, I want people to renew, you've got kind of sub-metrics and KPIs, and you're saying, I just want them to open the app 2 more times. Yeah. I just want them to do 1 more thing. And that, if it builds on itself again and again, will eventually come to a renewal.
Absolutely.
Okay. Ritesh, looking from an agency perspective, because you're obviously talking to a lot of different brands, how are you seeing brands kind of moving maybe from that, initial purchase, that one-time kind of customer acquisition, to trying to become, almost subscription or recurring revenue?
To start with, when we moved in, there were too many subscribers to the panel before. We have lost a lot of subscribers already. So,
you did a bad job at retention.
So yeah. So see, I think what Harshita is doing is next level, right? And hats off to her and her team to really follow an LTV model. Maximum brands are still stuck with CAC. They are looking at cost of acquisition, only following that model. Now, from CAC to LTV is a journey, and journey of evolution of every brand. How much of investment have we done in MarTech? How much investment have we done to understand our consumer at different points? And obviously, I'm sure the churn rate is also not, the exit points are well defined, and you're optimizing each exit point. Yeah. So if we have the data, it is easy for us to optimize, plan campaigns, devise engagement strategies, and then therefore, ensure that our different exit points are being optimized and we get more customers in.
And Dhruv, you've got a very different perspective, because you've got, your revenue is based on engagement, but it's not actually paid by the consumers. It's a sort of like a B2B2C model.
So Chalo is an app with which you can live track buses, and you can see where your bus is and how far away it is from your bus stop. So nobody ever has to go and wait at a bus stop ever again, right? But it's a free-to-use app. You can also buy your ticket and see how crowded the bus is. But again, no, we don't charge you any money for buying the ticket on the app. It's all paid for by the bus operator. And as Chris said, it's paid for by the bus operator when we increase their bus ridership for them. The idea is that with technology like Chalo, you can actually make the bus experience a lot better. So for those of you who live in Mumbai and you take the BEST bus outside, our bet is that with apps like Chalo out there, you're going to use the bus more often, and you're going to choose it over other modes of transport. When that ridership increases, that's when the bus operator sort of pays us. So our business goal then becomes increasing bus ridership for the bus operator, and the Chalo app becomes a means towards that end for us. Right? And now there are a lot of actions on the app, exactly the way Harshita said, that you can then say, okay, if people come in and live track a bus, we can bet our life on it that they're about to take a bus, because how many times are you going to come in and open an app to just live track a bus for fun, right? You're not. This is not even the equivalent of window shopping on like an e-commerce website or something, right? So, and then we actually move further and deeper into it. We track your analysis, we analyze your usage, and we can actually create travel plans for you. So are you the kind of person who takes the bus every day, or only sometimes, or rarely? Do you take X route or Y route, and so on and so forth? That's really how we go about it. Yeah.
Harshita, I guess as Ritesh noted, your company is quite far along the kind of maturity curve in what you're doing around this, of kind of, having your cohorts and differentiated approaches. If you had to, I guess, do it again, like if smaller companies, startups who are trying to figure out how to do this wanted advice, how do you begin setting this up? What sort of recommendations would you give?
As Ritesh mentioned, when we started off, the main KRA was to keep CAC as low as possible. We're like, okay, what's that channel that's bringing us the lowest possible CAC? And then we realized that it's not about the CAC itself, it's about which channel is delivering the kind of users that's likely to renew. So that, understanding of, again, user behavior and who's likely to renew, CAC doesn't, we were discussing this earlier, CAC doesn't bother us anymore. Performance marketing has become very, very expensive in the last 2 years, but that's fine. As long as we get a user that's going to stay with us for a couple of years, is going to display the behavior on the app that is valuable to us. And that's not just renewal, right? For us, at least on TimesTrime, there are multiple ways that we could earn when a user transacts on the platform. If they show those behaviors, we're happy. So I'm okay with the CAC as long as it leads to a decent lifetime on the app and then the value. And I think one of the things that we learned is having, of course, an omni-channel engagement system, which is, of course, email and SMS and WhatsApp, but also understanding channel affinity. So not everybody responds to the same message. Like, you might like respond to a WhatsApp better. I'm very active on the app, and the app real estate is good enough for me to transact or, use benefits. So understanding that channel affinity by cohort and then communicating through that medium is very, very important. So, and getting those systems in place is very, very critical as well. Yeah.
Okay. And I think this actually leads on to an interesting point we were discussing earlier, Ritesh. Like from a performance marketing perspective, it very much used to be, get an agency, run campaigns, lowest CAC possible, and that's what we want. Are you seeing brands starting to become more open to the idea of talking about lifetime value? Or how can brands get more value from agencies that they work with to look at this kind of retention and growth beyond just acquisition?
So to start with, I'll give a hand and leg both to get Harshita as my client. We're going to need more brands to really talk about LTV and follow the LTV model. Now, we have Bajaj Finserv as our large customer. Now, over there, they work primarily on their existing base. They have a 60 million base. They have consumer understanding about who's more pro towards credit card, personal loan, or, their professional loans also, doctor loan or lawyer loans as well, and mutual funds and so on and so forth. Now, over there, they are doing data mining. And huge amount of data mining is happening to understand consumer behavior, not just from a product purchase point of view, also from a content consumption point of view. Which customer is consuming what kind of content on their website? Blog reading, product information, comparisons, also trying to meet somewhere, we create a lot of cohorts on social media when we boost a post. Even those cohorts are being mapped from a consumer behavior point of view, and then therefore performance marketing channel is run. So the minute you start doing more data analytics, data mining, trying to understand your consumer more, you will see greater and better results coming out. And Bajaj is a great case study for us.
Are you finding brands generally becoming more open about sort of sharing that long-term data? Who's renewing, who's not renewing, revenue cycles?
Evolved brands, yes. And a lot of startups are starting to do that. There are brands who are in the midlife, so to say, who are struggling to get CAC down and yet looking at LTV, and they have to do a lot of product improvement also. So where the priorities are all over the place, I would say, that's where the challenge is. But a lot of startups today are focusing on LTV. And when they go to a VC, when they go to a PE to pitch their business, they talk about LTV. If the start is right, then obviously grass is greener and they'll see the North Pole soon. But if they start with a CAC conversation with a VC as well, and we know what will happen.
And Dhruv, I mean, you actually look far more branding to drive your acquisition.
That's right. So we did this whole CAC journey that Ritesh talked about, right? For 2 years, between 2017 and 2018, we spent God knows how much cash on advertising to get people to download an app, essentially. I'm sure all of you are familiar with app download campaigns, right? It's unfortunate that it's become a common phrase. We did a bunch of that. And what we found was that we were getting a pretty good app download cost. So if anyone was to be focused on CAC and CAC only, as Ritesh said, hey, we should have won some awards. What do you guys think? Do any of you want to put your hand up and say, what is a good cost per download for an app like Chalo to download, for an app like Chalo to pay? Anyone throw me a number? $30? Okay. Any other opinions? $5? Okay. So 35 to $30, okay. From your experience, since your agency, what would be a good number that, let's say you come to us and say, we think we can get you X.
You're putting me on a tight spot.
Yeah, give me a number.
Yeah, I have to win the business, I have to quote a lower price.
You're going to lose the business if you don't meet the price.
But $35 is decent.
$35, we were at $12, yeah? So, like I said, we should apply for performance marketing awards. What was happening at the other end was that 5 weeks later, we were left with only 20% of these customers. 80% were churning out. And now I didn't bother doing any consumer work. We just jumped to an intuitive answer to this. But our understanding was that it's not sufficient for an app like Chalo, which is new. We're not just another Me Too. We're not another e-commerce or anything like that. You have to get used to the idea of live tracking your bus. It's not sufficient to just show a banner and then visit an app store page and then download it and then expect someone to just start using it. Or if that is a reasonable expectation, then maybe our product isn't up to mark, right? Whatever it is, we have a problem. On 6th of June, I remember telling him this, in 2019, we halted all app acquisition campaigns. We brought them to absolute zero in one day. We switched that day to only a branding approach. And we also did not rely heavily on digital after that for people to download an app, right? Now, if I go and talk to anyone else about that, they'd be like, you're nuts. Why would you not advertise on digital and maybe only on digital? We started doing the simplest things in the world. We started going out and putting bus posters in buses. We started putting them at bus stops. We started putting promoters at bus stops, demoing the app, explaining to people how is this to be used. This is the benefit. This is what happens. 2 years later, we now have 10 to 20 times our downloads in any given month than we could have ever had with digital. And our new cost of acquisition is $4. So, and that you have to have, though, a team that believes in this, huh? When you jump to instinctive answers, right? Or we could have done another year's worth of consumer research to say, log app kyun nahi use kar rahe? And then as a marketing team, I could have said, boss, $12 now, talk to the product team, why are they leaving the app and going and stuff, right? But it's important to just zoom out and holistically and make changes that can be unexpected.
Just, Chris, I want to add one point to it. And this is the second convention which I had. I was talking to a friend of mine called Arnab. He's launched a product called Digibox, which is like a Dropbox competition. And he said he ran, and he runs a digital marketing company on the side. He ran an app download campaign. 85% was the uninstall rate. Yeah. Or he said these were fake downloads. Yeah. Now, and similar number you're talking about. And I think on the lighter note, it happens if you pay $12.
Well, our retention has gone up to 40% from 18% earlier. So I think we're okay where we are right now.
So B2C and B2B businesses are different.
Yeah.
In a B2B model where Digibox he was talking about, he has stopped all marketing acquisition campaigns. He is now actually working on increasing engagement on the app, giving more features to the consumer. His organic growth rate has gone phenomenally high. With no marketing, he's, I think, sitting at 2.5 lakh active users of a Dropbox kind of product from India. Niti Aayog had launched them, so that went very well. And he was talking about that 1.4% or 5% right now are paid customers for him. And he's waiting for that 20 GB threshold to go up so that people start paying more. So in a B2C environment, you had to go outside any offline marketing mode. In a B2B environment, he's looking at referrals and therefore increasing features and going about it.
Yeah, I think with a lot of products, when we're talking to product people, there's a concept called the aha moment, which is when you've got an app and you do something with it and you're like, okay, I get it. This is a useful app. And I would imagine with a bus tracking app, the first time you actually track your bus and you see that it's coming and you get on the bus, after that, you'd probably use it almost every day. And the same with a storage like a Dropbox. Like you put your files in there, they're synced, they're accessible, and then you just keep adding more files. Like you've now found that value that's there. And after that, as long as you can build a habit around it, it starts to become quite sticky, I think. Yeah. Dhruv, one other thing I thought was really interesting when you were talking about retention, like for your business environment, it's not just the app itself that has to be engaging. You also have to look at the whole value chain. Not just because the bus has to be there for people to track a bus, and so if you want to grow your I guess your engagement and your renewals, you actually have to look outside of your product.
That's absolutely true. So we focus a lot on usage, and we focus not on app usage but on bus usage. So it's important to us that you start using the bus more often and more often and more often, right? The data today tells us that a really, really active, a heavily active bus user uses a bus maybe 30 times a month. Now, 30 times a month is 15 days out of, say, 22 or 23 that you would probably step out of the house regularly. And if you count leisure travel, maybe 25, 26 days. So out of a possible 52 trips, the bus has 30 out of that. Now, how are you traveling at the other times? The people take all kinds of modes of transport. And remember, we're talking about bus travelers. So their financial condition is a very important thing to keep in mind here, because they're very, very cost-sensitive people, right? So when for them to take an auto rickshaw somewhere is not as the same as for you and me to just stop by and say, oh, let's have a cup of coffee. It's not going to work like that. They have to think twice, maybe 3 times before spending 50 to 70 rupees on an auto rickshaw because that's a week's worth of bus travel for them. So we focus on the bus usage part a lot. When the bus rides waver, against your previously predicted pattern, we know there's a problem coming, right? And our biggest answer to this today, because we have to address this at scale, we're talking about 100 lakh rides, every month. We have to address this at scale. So rather than individualized, personalized communication, at least at this stage of our company's growth, we've started creating travel plans for you. So you're the kind of person that takes 50 trips, there's a plan for you. You're the kind of person that takes 30 trips, there's a plan for you. You're the kind of person that takes just 4 or 5 trips, there's a plan for you. And what we found is that with travel plans, we can massively increase ridership by as much as 25%. Because once we've got you committed to a plan at the beginning of a month, you're more and more likely to use that mode of transport. I guess psychologically, it's because the bus trip is now free, because you've already paid for your plan, right? So now the next bus trip is free, and the next bus trip is free, and the next bus trip is free. So you're also maybe a little bit more forgiving. So if the bus doesn't come in 10 minutes, but it comes in, say, 17 minutes, you're more willing to wait that extra time for it, right? At the other end of the spectrum, we're working very hard to add more buses. Because adding buses is really the answer to this, right? Why should you have to wait 17 or 20 minutes for a bus? If there's a bunch of people waiting for a bus, we should get a bus there faster. But this involves working with industry, with government, with city governments, state governments, and so on, to make that happen. So that's a much longer journey. That can take months, maybe years to happen. Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to just touch on the concept of referrals for a minute, because I think that's really important when we look at kind of retention and growth, because referrals gives you your what's called your earned new customers. Your customers that have a zero cost of acquisition, like not even 4 rupees. It's free. But it also means that you've got an existing customer who either they're happy enough with your brand that they're willing to refer you, or you've incentivized them enough that they're willing to refer you. Harshita, is this something that you're doing? Are you driving business?
It's extremely important for us. So, Dhruv's product is what I like to call a pill. Like it solves a problem. And my product is maybe like a vitamin or maybe even candy. Like it's a lifestyle subscription, right? We want to make you happy and like add efficiency to your life. You buy into essentially a bouquet of benefits. So these are the type of things that people are actually happy to talk about or become evangelists of. Like, if I'm getting 10 subscriptions at the price of 1 and getting access to events, I'm likely to tell my friends, right? So I think at least early in our, in our life cycle, we saw a lot of referrals coming in. I think the challenge is like, what we see is the same guy refers a lot of people, but it's difficult to get them to actually start referring. Because, referral and word of mouth is actually 2 different things. You might actually talk about, the membership to you, but I may not actually bother to use my referral code. So it isn't necessarily always trackable. So how to kind of, keep track, so essentially we're like, why are people not referring? Like, why is only 20% of my base referring? This other 80% is very happy. Why are they not referring? But actually we realize this, they don't necessarily always use a referral code. And like happy people, like they don't care about the $200 gratification. They'll just talk about it. So it is difficult to track, but as you said, sometimes you just have to go on your instinct. We like to think we're doing a good job and people are talking about it. It isn't necessarily always trackable. Yeah.
Are you identifying cohorts, like kind of groups of people who are more likely to refer than others?
100%. So like, I'll have to tell you a little bit about Times Prime. So you buy into OTT and news subscription, and music and events, and we find that the folks who've used the OTT and the music and the news, but they're going to attend our events, or maybe they're using our food benefits or restaurant discounts, they're the ones who become like true evangelists because they've gone and used the long tail of your benefits, right? So they're the ones who are more likely to tell a friend. Like if I use Hotstar, which all of us use, and just maybe another music subscription, maybe I'm not going to go tell a friend about it. But it depends on, and we also actually have, we know that it's 9 benefits used means he's likely to refer. So that's the level of detailing we look at. Yeah.
We're happy to open it up to any questions. If there's anyone who wants to ask anything about retention and growth.
Yeah. Firstly, I actually have a question for Dhruv, right? I come from the crypto space myself, right? So in crypto, we've tried digital ads. It's very easy to get acquisition in like 15 bucks, 20 bucks. But same problem, right? They drop off, 90% of them drop off. So what kind of suggestions would you have, in terms of brand building? Because brand building is the most important thing right now. That'll automatically take care of everything else. So what do you suggest over there?
Bus posters.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be fair. Look, I think we should have a larger conversation outside in the interest of the room, but there is, this concept of old marketing, new marketing, digital marketing, is all nonsense, right? There's only human beings, that's all that matter, right? I think you need to figure that out, that who's my TG, right? They figure out what their TG loves, and they've packaged a bundle of services around that to make theirs a more attractive offering, right? You need to figure out who's my TG, what do they want, where does crypto intersect with that, and therefore what are the right communication touch points and what will trigger them. I mean, that's a Gyan answer, so I'm sorry. We can discuss more in detail afterward. But when we switched from digital to bus posters, it was instinctive. It was like, listen, they need to know more than just seeing a banner ad and clicking on it and saying, now download. And if you know what Google Play Store does, right, is that much now. You have one line of text to explain your ad, one image and a button saying download, right? How is that enough for somebody to realize that there's a whole new thing possible with the way I travel by bus? That was our thinking. But you have to apply your thinking and your circumstances. Yeah.
Just want to add to what Dhruv is saying. Say, all marketing or product creation, it starts from consumer. If you know your consumer very well, your product will be better, your marketing, your communication will be better, far more focused, right? Old 40-30 model of marketing has been called AIDA, A-I-D-A, awareness, interest, desire, action, right? That's how we have studied, right? The new way of looking at is, flywheel model which HubSpot has created. It's a flywheel. Please look at that. It's a very interesting way of doing it. What they're saying is it is not a funnel. It is a wheel. Right? It starts with strangers, prospect, customers, and advocates. Now, if you know that people, for example, let's go a little deeper into what you were saying. Your TG, where is that TG sitting? What is their knowledge levels? You are looking at in-market TG, which is prospect for conversion, or you have to educate your TG to make them prospects. So if you understand the journey very well, your communication will change, your targeting will change, and you will not do only branding. You will do multiple things depending on your business goals, and your conversion rates will be better. Your business growth will be better, your bottom line will be healthier. Offline.
Hi, good afternoon. We understand that for us to acquire any customer, we really need to go heavy on performance marketing or brand building. But once we go beyond that, especially when it's a subscription-based model platform, and you have already acquired that customer, he has converted and he's already started paying, what more can we do for them? Is there something beyond that? Like, I understand the user is already a heavy user of your platform. He knows everything inside out. What else can we market it to them? And is there a merit in doing those marketing activities beyond once the user has become a paid user? Especially in the OTT and music space is what
I'll tell you what we do. Right? So we don't necessarily spend money on an acquired user today. We see decent enough retentions. We do use our in-app real estate to communicate with them a lot. And so, you spoke of app downloads. We actually never did that. So we always push the subscription first. And once one subscribes, there's no way to use the subscription besides downloading the app. So it kind of makes it very easy for us to get the download if we've got the subscriber. And if he's paid for it. So the thing with subscriptions is, particularly in India, is that people essentially pay you for their own loyalty, right? They bought into a bundle, they are going to use pretty much everything. So I think what we find is that if we just keep adding more and more benefits, people are very happy. And I like to think that's how it is across the world, but more so in India, like more is always good. So instead of spending money on like maybe, re-engaging them or something, we just go and put that effort into getting one more benefit. That may be a digital event with, say, an Ankur Warikoo, or maybe it's just another subscription on the health sector. So contextual stuff. So that to me is also marketing in a way, right? Like giving you more is is good, is always good. So we don't actually spend on it, but that's the way we look at it.
You know, performance marketing as a term has become a very wide term, right? So we need to go a little granular in that. Manas is sitting at the back, he's giving an example. He plays cricket regularly. He wanted to improve his square drive. He went and hired a place for bowling machine, and he just practiced square drive. That's also improving performance, right? So you need to go granular in your goals and see what you want to improve on, what you want to achieve, and then go after it than just talking bigger term as performance marketing.
Just on that, I understand that. But since a user has already paid for your services, do you usually put some kind of engagement-led activities to provide that to the user, maybe through other channels of communication, could be email, could be push notification? Is there a merit in doing those things? Because now you have already acquired the user, you have already got the user. What more benefits can you give that user? Is there a merit in that?
In the interest of time, the answer is yes, and we can talk offline. 25 seconds left.
All right. Well, thank you for the questions. I mean, I think we'll all be available afterwards if anyone wants to wants to come and ask us more specific things. A huge thank you to the panel. I mean, I think this is it's a topic that a lot of companies are talking about at the moment. This idea of balancing acquisition with retention and growth. I was very excited to have three very different perspectives here with us today. Thank you very much for your thoughts on this, and thank you very much to the audience, and thank you to IAMAI.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much, Chris. And thank you to all the panelists. I request everyone to just please come. We can have a small group picture to remember us.